You think you know me.
Today on Security VIP, we feature the head of U.S. Market Development at GAT Labs, Scott Fisher. Get ready for nothing but the truth.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security VIP podcast. It's your home for nothing but the truth. As always, I'm your host, Taylor May, and I'm excited because I was recently featured on this gentleman's podcast, Innovator Insights, and now had to return the favor and invite him back on my podcast. But his name is Scott Fisher. He's the head of U.S. Market Development at GAT Labs. That's GAT Labs. Scott, my friend, welcome to SVIP. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. Nice to talk with you again.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me. I know you're up in the Northeast New York area. I'll tell you what, man. I am not a fan of the Northeast, so I don't know how the hell you live up there. Number one, and then number two, the cold, bro. It's like 56 degrees here in Dallas, so I can't get used to that, dude. Not at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit cold here for sure. I am in New York, as you mentioned. I'm actually out on Long Island, which is east of New York City. But we got a pretty good amount of snow yesterday. So yeah, it's not fun. The winters are not fun anymore. I used to enjoy them a lot more than I do now, that's for sure.
Yeah, my wife and I were up there in the Hamptons, actually, off of Long Island, and did a little shopping up there, and the weather was perfect. I think it was like 70, 75 about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And so we were like, oh, yeah, this is actually perfect because typically Dallas is typically hot, but right now
Right.
it's just freezing, man. So kudos to you for dealing with the cold up there in New York. Well, Scott, my friend, obviously, here at SVIP, we like to promote transparency and accountability when it comes to manufacturers' products and solutions, whether it's on the physical or cybersecurity side. I know you lean heavily more to the InfoSec, cybersecurity, IT side, which is actually interesting for our guests because a lot of our guests, Scott, are physical security guests. And so what I've always preached, though, here in 2025, I know we're on the tail end of 2025, is there's this big convergence happening between physical and cybersecurity now coming together. It's no longer siloed because, again, everything's interconnected, IoT devices, et cetera. So before we kind of dive into the cybersecurity element of GAT Labs and kind of how you guys focus on as a company, how about you give our listeners just some context about yourself and what Scott Fisher is all about?
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you. So for many years, far more than I want to admit on this podcast, I was the director of technology in a few different school districts. The most recent one was out in the area you just mentioned in the Hamptons. I was there probably 13 years. So as a director of technology, you're responsible for everything, from budgeting to identifying security risks and coming up to, with solutions for them, managing a team, day-to-day support, and so forth. As the director of technology, I became a customer of GAT Labs, and I began using their tools in my environment and found them to be amazing. And I was so impressed with the tool set that I was using because it's a comprehensive tool set. It's actually multiple tools that make up the entire tool set. I was so impressed with the pieces that I was using that I expanded my use as they added more products that were focused more directly on instruction, and I added those into the portfolio as well, and I was very happy with them. So I had been a customer for a few years, and then the time was sort of right for me to move on from what I was doing there and this opportunity at GAT Labs. I had a great conversation with the people at GAT Labs, explained to them how much I had, liked the product and so forth and been a user. And we came up with this position where I'm a bit of a evangelist, if you will, for GAT Labs, and also, trying to expand the footprint of GAT Labs because my experience at GAT Labs and the first conversation I had with the CEO was pretty much, wow, your product's great. I really enjoy it. It does everything you say it does, and there's so much more to it that I'm learning, but I don't see a lot about it out there. If I talk to people and I introduce it to them, they're impressed with it too. So, how is this working? And they said, well, yeah, for the longest time, that's what they relied on was word of mouth and people recommending it. And I still feel that that's always the best way to learn about a product. If your colleague's telling you, hey, I use this and it's doing XYZ for me and it'll make your life easier. That's the strongest recommendation you're going to get, and that's probably going to be something that I'll at least look into more than some sales rep knocking on my door trying to sell me something. But having said that, we did discuss that there are some opportunities to spread that word a little bit more. So GAT Labs, in addition to being very very popular in schools, we are also an enterprise product. So for organizations that are using Google Workspace for business and so forth, we have a complete tool set available for the enterprise customers as well as the educational customers. So I came on board with GAT back in, I guess, October of last year. So a little over a year, few more months than that, and it's been a great experience. I had a really good experience with the company to begin with as a customer, and sort of flipping the script a little bit and working on the inside. It's a really great team to work for. GAT is a company that's actually based in Dublin, Ireland, but we have people that are scattered all around the world. I happen to be the only person who actually lives in the United States, even though the United States is their largest market. So it kind of made sense to have somebody in the US that can continue expanding the footprint, so to speak. But it's great because we support customers from around the world, both education and enterprise all over the world. And what's really interesting is we're supporting them with people from around the world. So at any point in time, I might be, working or collaborating with someone from who knows where, around the world. And from a personal growth experience, it's been wonderful because I've gotten to be exposed to many other people and many other cultures. So it's really been exciting for me. I'm very happy to be a part of the team here at GAT.
Yeah, I always thought it was interesting anytime you see an end user join the manufacturer side because of number one, the quality, but also the service of what the solution's solving. So I think that speaks to the credibility with GAT now because you can speak to that lingo when you're pitching or, positioning GAT to an end user and say, look, I was an end user of GAT and this is how I used it for our school district or XYZ. And so I think that brings credibility, number one, because you've been in that seat before. So now you can talk about it. But then number two, like you said, the enterprise footprint. I guess from y'all's perspective at GAT, education, I get it. I mean, a lot of cybersecurity challenges happen a lot with younger kids now, where kids are getting manipulated by parents with modified content, deep fake detection. We can talk about that in here in a second. But on the enterprise side, what are the typical challenges you're seeing on the cybersecurity side with enterprises, Fortune 500? Is it segmented per vertical market? Is it still phishing attacks? Or is it still just basic cybersecurity threat vectors? Like, what are you seeing on the enterprise side?
Well, it's all of the above, to be honest with you. So, at GAT, they like to refer to it as a full stack solution. So
Yeah.
it's real-time API level auditing, and we can tell you everything that's taking place in your domain. So you can see if someone's sharing files in or out that shouldn't be it. So if someone has access to your domain, maybe they shouldn't. Somebody inadvertently shared out a file. Somebody internally is doing something they shouldn't be doing. Perhaps, when your Google Workspace was set up, you gave rights to everybody, just left everything open. So we can go in now and we can show you everything that's taking place in your environment with your Google Workspace. We can help you address all of your data loss issues. We can help you address your compliance issues. We can set up safety alerts and rules and notifications and things like that. So it's not very different from what's going on in the schools. It's pretty much the same. And the compliance factor and the in-depth ability to see everything that's taking place in your domain is really what separates us from everybody else. So, for example, if somebody was taking files and downloading to their local computer for some reason, we can give you some insight into that. We can give you an alert. That may be a perfectly legitimate. There may be a perfectly legitimate reason for them to do that, but there also might be something you want to look at. Why is your employee suddenly taking all your files from your shared drive, putting them on their local machine? Are they doing something they shouldn't be doing with them? Are they sharing them with somebody they shouldn't be sharing them with them? Or are they just looking to leave your company and they're taking what they need, with them along the way? We can give you some really in-depth insight to what's going on in terms of the content of your files, in terms of the content of your email, the frequency of your email. We can tell you everything you need to know. So this full stack extends all the way out to the actual browser itself, because we also have products that use a Chrome extension that we can really give you detailed data loss prevention type information and information on the activity that's taking place on each of the browsers in your organization. So we can address all of the most common pain points, because as a person who's managing Google Workspace, it's such a broad undertaking that we can help you manage the key pieces that are most important to your organization. And they might differ, as you mentioned, education to enterprise. Enterprise, even within that space, might be, a large news corporation has this type of problem that's most important to them, whereas a university has a different one, or an insurance company or a legal company, a law firm has these types of needs. So we can get very granular with our tool to give people exactly what they need to solve their most common pain points.
Well, you mentioned a story to me, going back to education now, where what I've seen now in school districts is the cool thing is to hack things, to be a black cat, to get access to confidential information, or try to exploit things, whether it could be malicious or something as simple as like I want to change my grade because I bombed a test. You know,
Yeah.
kids want to like hack, they want to code, they want to do things like that. But you mentioned a story to me where y'all's software on the back end can see exactly where students are going. You can obviously shut down the activity, you can block the pop-ups, you can limit their activity, but so it's no more. It's like this. You call it like a cat and mouse game. I think your son was using the technology at a school district, and he can see all the activity of these students. Because honestly, Scott, like that's where my concern comes in with cybersecurity is we mentioned deepfake detection, where there's people that are manipulating or using AI and weaponization of AI to modify video, voice, audio, etc., to say, "Hey, I'm Scott Fisher, or I'm your dad, or whatever. Do this X, Y, Z." Then that kid is vulnerable enough to fall for that. So the deepfake aspect is what scares me the most. But I like the ability where you can still where GAT Labs is giving you guys that kind of functionality to see the whole spectrum of visibility of where students are pinging or trying to ping or trying to expose. And so obviously you guys can shut that down, immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we do is we complement the Google Workspace. So we lay on
Yeah.
top of it. Okay. We work with it. All right. So like, trying to think of an example. Maybe like Google, like you walk into a library, you check out a book, right? Google knows everything you've done, that you've checked out the book, at what time, what the name of it is, who you are, and all that stuff. But once you have the book in your hand, they have no idea what you're doing. Where with
Yeah.
GAT, we have that book. We consider it a screen, of course. We can see everything you're doing with it. So now we not only know what file you took or what data you work with, but now we know what you're doing with it or where you're browsing on your web and so forth. And again, you point out to the school example, but it's not limited to schools. It's in companies as well. What are your people doing while they're at work? Everybody shops, everybody goes to Amazon. We understand that, but you might have a threshold for how much of that's allowed. So we can show
Yeah.
you time on task. We can show you how much time each person has spent on Amazon or shopping in general or whatever. And we could also put up alerts. We do this a lot in school. Kid starts looking for things about bombs or guns or drugs or, adult-oriented material, or certainly games is the big one that I was talking about with the example of my son. The
Yeah.
kids are constantly pinging game sites, and obviously, that takes away from their instructional time, and some of the game sites could be quite inappropriate. But the point I'm getting at is we can stop that in real time. So we can either allow it to happen and send an alert to somebody and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. You might want to check it out." And we can differentiate the alerts based on who the person is or what their role is in the organization, whether it's a school or a company, and have a certain person notified of this and have it happen at a particular frequency. Is it immediate, or is it, daily, or is it, how do you want to be notified of these types of things? But we can also stop it in real time. So the moment a kid starts searching for, unfortunately, suicide or things like that, we can immediately, in that case, we could redirect them to a specific site if we decide that that's the best approach. Or if it's just completely inappropriate, we can pop up a message and then close their browser and redirect them to somewhere else. But the key is it's all tracked. It's all there so that we can go back and we have a log of what's taking place what's taking place by all of the people in the organization, so that people can start to see patterns. And if they start looking at the data and analyzing the data, you can see how it impacts your efficiency of your team, or how much time they're away from doing what they ought to be doing, or are they spending time on your competitors' websites, or whatever the case might be. We give you all the tools to see that information in real time. So that's why we say we're the full stack, everything from the back end all the way right out to everything that's taking place in the browser and beyond.
Is it safe to say, Scott, that you guys have like some sort of like, or maybe it is like safe to say like you guys have some sort of like social media monitoring aspect with GAT Labs, where if someone is like being cyber bullied on a social media site, that you guys can monitor that or alert on that or track that?
Yeah, it's a little bit harder when it comes to the actual social media site. We can track the activity taking you out to the
Yeah.
site and what people are doing in social media. And we can see to some extent the activity that's taking place in there. But the tools, they're not necessarily geared specifically for social media. A better example might be if you have someone in the organization maybe created a doc and is sending something inappropriate to everybody. We could find out who sent it, what the content is, shut it down, remove it from everybody's drive folder. If you have a phishing email that comes in and everybody in the organization suddenly being notified that the boss is, being generous with gift cards or something,
Yeah.
we can immediately shut it down. We can find out, everything about that email and who has the email and remove it from their inboxes instantly, whether they've read the email or they haven't had the chance to read it. So our tools are good that way. We can track what's going on out in the browser and we can see everything that you're doing and we can provide data based on that. And if once you're out in the browser, if you're actually using the browser itself for the social media, then yes, we have a much better chance of being able to capture the information and do the things you're talking about. If they're using the app itself, we can't necessarily get to the content of what's happening on that app if it's not being done through the browser. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know that makes complete sense. And honestly, besides education being one of the most under-resourced environments, obviously funding is always an issue. I would also see value, big time value, with like legal teams and law firms having GAT or even insurance companies, man, because obviously they're sending documents left and right, and it could be confidential documents, and obviously someone downloads something they're not supposed to or share something they're not supposed to. This should be like a necessity. It should be a no given. So I'd imagine you guys see a lot of legal teams adopt GAT here in the U.S. at least.
Yeah, well, that's a big deal, okay? Because when it comes to, we're talking about, keep in mind now that GAT has attained that SOC 2
Right.
Type 2 certification, which is really, really important to people. So that does two things, okay? Your auditors want to know where's the data and who has access to it, okay? Those
Yep.
are the two important things. We can tell you both. So we can tell you exactly where the data is, where it's been moved around to, who's touched it. But when it comes to the really critical data, when it comes to the highly sensitive, confidential information, we have a process where two people have to be involved so that you can't have some rogue employee, even if it's a technician, just go off and say, I want to start looking at this confidential information. So what they have to do is one has to make a request and say, I need to see this information for this period of time, and here's the reason why. And then somebody else who's got that same ability to authorize has to approve it. So there's always a two-person process. So that's really where we come into satisfying that need of not only what they're doing, but who has the access to it, and
Right.
we can limit it significantly. And everything that's taking place in GAT is logged. So you can't touch the logs. They're all there. They're searchable. They're exportable. So everything that's taking place in the environment can be monitored carefully.
I want to pivot to like the mentality of cybersecurity because and I want to hear your expertise around this. Obviously, there's always a mindset like going to physical security, like an active shooter will never happen here. Like we'll never go through that. But until it does, then they take security more important. Are you seeing that on the cyber side where we've never been hacked before, Scott? So why would I need something like this? And then obviously, we're never going to be exposed. We're pretty hard, and obviously till it does, and that's when they pull out the checkbook and they want to expend. But are you seeing that kind of mentality kind of disconnect around cybersecurity where people are still not taking it serious enough?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's a big problem, actually. And what we have is we have a lot of customers that come to us with a very specific use case in mind because something's happened within their environment, and they want to
Yeah.
be able to go back and either analyze it or fix it or both. So that happens a lot. But but where you're getting at is, until it happens, they don't want to think about it. That's very, very common. People are under the misconception that Google is protecting everything and therefore they don't need anything on top of that. And
Yeah.
I'm not knocking Google. Google does a great job of everything, but it's the old way of doing things. So you need to have the advanced tools that we provide to fill that gap between what you can do with your Google Admin Console and what we can do for you, both from an analytical perspective and in a real-time perspective, the way we can limit some activities and security. So, you have schools are infamous for that mentality of, well, we've always done it this way, and businesses to some extent too, especially um, the
The
older
dinosaurs,
businesses.
man. The dinosaurs. I
Yeah,
call them
I'm
the
I'm trying to
dinosaur
be
mentality.
polite, trying to be polite about this, The legacy companies, if you will, they're a little bit reluctant to first recognize that
Yeah.
there needs to be a change and why there needs to be a change, and then to, actually make that change happen and what the benefits are. So, we talk a lot about our product being from a security perspective, and it is, and it does a wonderful job of securing the environment, keeping people safe, keeping them out of harm's way or protecting people from harming them in many different ways. But we also have with our tools a great way of improving efficiency within the organization. So it's not just about this gotcha mentality.
Right.
It's about actually making life easier and streamlining a lot of the processes. So, whether it's the day-to-day operation of managing and keeping track of what's going on in your environment so that you have a clear-cut picture. I mean, this is especially true if a company rolled out Google way back when, and they just followed the steps out of the box. They need to go back and revisit that setup right now because it was fine at the time, but things have changed. So with our tool, we can go back and give them, a nice deep dive. But we can also help you with things like, you're onboarding staff on a regular basis or you're offboarding staff on a regular basis, whatever the case might be. So we can help you with that process because we can set up scenarios or workflows where, as a new employee comes in, here's a checklist of things that have to happen. They get assigned to this manager and they get rights to these files and folders, and these files and folders they can read only, but these files they can actually edit. If there's a team calendar or a company-wide calendar they need to have access to, or their calendar should be shared with their manager, or if their calendar should be shared with the team, we can set all of that up. We can do things, as granular as setting up company-wide email signatures for everybody so that you have a standard across the board, not just for professionalism, but a lot of times a company will want to have your legal, your law team or your lawyers in the organization will want you to have certain language that has to be in your email signature. So we can accomplish that too. So, yeah, we love to bill ourselves as protecting your data, helping you manage it, but it's also about efficiency as well. It's not just about playing gotcha with, we know what you did today, big brother kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's why I also see there's value for the mom and pops out there, even when it comes to, like you said, onboarding or offboarding employees, because you might have a disgruntled terminated employee that still has access to confidential information. And, why not have something in place to make sure that they don't have access to that information? Or if they do, who are they sharing with? How are they using it? To your point, et cetera. So there's a lot of, I think, ICP and vertical markets where this makes complete sense and also a mandate. So that's my next question, Scott, is like the go-to-market strategy for GAT. Obviously, physical, it's predominantly like you go through a channel reseller, then you go to the end user. Some manufacturers go direct to end user. For you, are you guys going through like an MSP, or are you guys working directly to the customer? And also, does pricing vary based on vertical market? So are you guys more price conscious with school districts than you are with enterprises? I know I'm doing a lot, but I just want to kind of understand the go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, let me get back to your go-to-market strategy in just a moment, but you touched on something before you shifted gears that I think is really important.
Yeah.
So one of the powerful things with our tools is just what you were talking about when you're offboarding people and you need to shut them down and have access. So we can trigger alerts to happen if the employee is doing X, Y, or Z, if they're sending out massive number of emails within a 24 hour, if they're downloading a lot of files within a certain period of time or whatever. And that trigger or that activity will trigger a workflow that will automatically disable their account so that maybe it's not them doing something wrong. Maybe somebody hacked their account and they're sending out mass emails on their behalf. Or maybe it is actually somebody who's walking out the door tomorrow and they're taking everything with them before they go. So in either case, we can combine the two. We can take the alert to trigger the workflow and then have a series of activities that will disable the account or do a series of steps, take away their rights, whatever it is, even log them out of every device they've ever logged into with your company account or your school account. Or if it's a company account or device, we can wipe the device. We could take away all the OAuth access that they have. So anything they've given access to using your school email. And we can even take away whatever their backup mechanism for accessing the account is. So if they have a personal email or phone number, we can get rid of all that. So we're shutting the door on them basically. And again, if it's unintentional on their part or something that they didn't, that they weren't even aware of, no problem. Tomorrow we'll re-enable the account, put everything back. We can make that happen for you. But we can shut it down in real time before some real damage happens. So I just wanted to bring that point up.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
The go-to-market is varied. Okay. So we will work directly with any company. We will work directly with any school system. However, if either of those have a preferred reseller that they like to work with, we have a very robust partner program. We have a lot of organizations that are part of that partner program. So sometimes they work on our behalf, or they work directly with the district and then or the company and come to us. Or sometimes we might reach out to a reseller and say, we have a customer who's interested in this product. They'd like to work with a reseller for whatever reason. We're based in
Those
Ireland.
resellers could work with you guys too. Like they could use GAT Labs for their own organization, I would imagine.
We've seen that as well.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's the whole thing, is about the education. I don't think once we make it clear, and certainly in the case of a partner where we're going to do a quick high level overview for all the tools for them so that they understand what they're selling, of course, and it's happened where they go, oh, we, like you're saying, we could use this internally for our own needs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's different approaches to that. We can go direct, we can work with resellers, we can work with people wherever they're most comfortable. Now, when it comes to the schools versus the enterprise and the pricing and so forth, our pricing we're really transparent about that. If you go out to gatlabs.com right now and go to pricing and look at enterprise pricing, it's all there. It doesn't change. We don't play games.
Nice.
This person gets this person gets that. The only thing we will do is obviously if we have large customers, okay, there's discounts that are available for larger customers because our pricing model is based on the number of users. That's the way it
Gotcha.
works. The number of active users in the Google domain, that's how you get charged. So the bigger organizations pay more, the smaller organizations pay less.
Makes
But
sense. Yeah.
obviously, we have overhead for everybody, no matter how big or small you are. So there has to be a minimum charge. So if you're an especially small, you're a solopreneur, or you're a really small business, there's a minimum annual charge just to be a part of it and so forth. But what we do for the schools is the school pricing is actually discounted between 85 and 90% off of the enterprise pricing. So we cut a tremendous deal for the schools because for the schools and us, it's more about the protection and it's more about helping them improve their efficiency. And it's not necessarily looking to them to, make a ton of money for us. But it's really important that we provide these tools to these organizations. So we do it at a very discounted rate.
That's awesome, man. Because obviously that's the number one thing that schools complain about is just lack of funding and lack of resources, right? They don't have the bodies, they don't have the capital. And so anytime a manufacturer, a vendor can offset some of that cost to provide a really, compelling solution, just benefits obviously admin staff and teachers, but also, the younger generation, the kids, which that's my heart and soul right now is just finding solutions that will protect the next generation, which is going to make this world hopefully a better place because we need more adoption just in general from the younger generation when it comes to security, and that's why one of the things that I'm doing with the Experience Center, which you know about, is to
Mhm.
really educate the younger generation. And honestly, we're going to have GAT Labs inside the Experience Center, so why not have
Looking
GAT
forward to
Lab
that.
GAT Lab showcase, man? I always ask this question, Scott, and it's always I always like to ruffle the feathers a little bit when I get
Uh-oh.
manufacturers
There we go.
on the podcast. So everyone, it's easy to talk about the pros of a company's solution, the highs, highlights, and stuff, and that's easy for anyone to mention. But when I speak with end users, man, I always tell them like, you should ask the manufacturer like, what's a weak point or where do you suck at your product line? That's probably the first question you should ask as an end user to a manufacturer. And obviously, since you've had both seats now, what do you think is that flaw or that weakness that GAT Labs has that you're not afraid to admit, to an end user?
Yeah, no, I get the point of the question and I understand where it's coming from. I want to be honest with you. I'm not really seeing that here with this company.
Oh
However, one
wow,
of the big
okay,
one of the
yeah,
one of the biggest things we face, of course, is people don't recognize the fact that we are very much focused on the Google Workspace. So
mhm,
if you're an organization that's using Microsoft Office and so forth, we're not going to be able to provide the depth of
right,
information that we can for a Google Workspace. If they are using the Chrome browser and they're using Microsoft Office, then of course we can still see everything that's going on and we can help them in the same ways we could help some of the other companies. But that's the point that some of the people coming to us will go, well, we're using Microsoft and we're using Google, and what GAT has decided, it sounds cliche, but it's true where a lot of the other companies that are in this space have gone wide to sort of accommodate everybody and anything. They've instead dug deep and, focused specifically on expanding what we can do for the Google customers because we see that as a huge opportunity and we see a big transition taking place, certainly in schools. Okay, no
yeah,
doubt about it. Almost every school you're dealing with right now either has Chromebooks, well, Google Workspace and Chromebooks, or at the very least, Google Workspace. So even if they're not using it for the school's primary email system, they are using it for staff and students to be able to share drives, folders, and things like that. But we're seeing a big shift in enterprise as well, and small businesses and so forth. And I think we talked about this when we spoke last. My personal belief is you have a younger generation of people entering the workspace now,
yeah,
and those people they grew up with Google, so they're very accustomed to it. So there's no longer those obstacles to, oh, we always used Office and that's the way we're going to continue it. They're more than willing to say, no, we'd actually prefer to use Google. Or here's the benefits, or here's both. So one of the places that, is a bit of a challenge for us is the Microsoft people, but we are in the process, hasn't been released. I don't know if I'm supposed to be announcing this yet, but we are working on the Edge browser so that we can expand a
Nice.
little bit and start to work with them as well. So that'll help somewhat, but by and large, we're a Google Workspace company, and our company focuses on Google Workspace, and we've decided that as they expand their functionality, we can take it to the next step at each point along the way, because whatever Google is doing, whatever they're providing to us through the Google APIs, we can take that data and we can use it in a much better way than they probably are for the customers. So, I don't mean to sound repetitive, is what I was talking about before. We complement the Google Workspace. It's not a matter of trying to compete or they do their thing, and we take the information that they provide and we make it better for the end users.
Well, there's a massive market of Google end users anyway. Obviously schools, Chromebooks. There's kids that have thousands of Chromebooks in that district. They're using Google in some capacity. So I 100% get that. I guess biggest competitor out there right now for you, man, is it? And honestly, when I say competitor, someone that's maybe you see a lot, obviously, but maybe they just have more resources in the U.S. I know you're a one-man show here in the U.S., man, so you can't be everywhere at once. If you can multiply Scott Fisher 1,000 times, that'd be great. But what is the biggest competitor you're seeing right now?
Yeah, well, there's a few of them up there, and we've actually been so bold as to, on our website, if you go up to the website, we actually have a comparison line by line. And the cool thing about the comparison, and there's name brands up there, there's the Better Clouds and so forth of the world up there, and not to knock their products, so the schools, it's Go Guardians and so forth. Okay, but
Yeah.
we honestly feel that what we do takes what they are doing already and expands upon it, so that even though they're doing something, we're doing a little bit more with it. And the actual the comparison that's up there on the website is actually generated through AI. So this is not somebody in our office sitting there going, how can I make GAT Labs look good compared to X, Y, or Z? So,
Yeah.
it's objective in my opinion. So I think that speaks volumes. And if you do a specific search to say, and this might even be on our website somewhere, I think somebody put a search, what's the best product for X, Y, Z? The chatbots are returning GAT Labs. So we feel very strongly about that. So there are a lot of other products that are out there, but there are not there, but none of the other products, let me start this again. They each do some of the things that we do, but I'm not aware of any of the other products that do all of the things that we do, and certainly not as well as we do them.
Gotcha. No, I love the it's kind of like an independent notary, man, like someone that's just an AI independent and it's recommending the best solution for like the pros and cons, of an organization. So I like that aspect you guys have.
Yeah, and you mentioned that I'm the only one in the US, but let me tell you that this company did just fine before Scott was here in the U.S. too. So I'm hopefully going to expand that and help them and build that. And I think we've had a pretty good year with the point you brought up earlier, where I can speak to some of the pain points that people have, and I can speak honestly with them and go, look, I was in your exact seat.
Right.
I had all the same things that you had to deal with. The tech department gets the toaster oven in the faculty room. It needs to be fixed for some reason. So I know you're being pulled in 12 directions. So this tool is great because it lets you focus on the things that are important and do it efficiently and effectively. So that was a big part of it, and I'm looking forward to expanding the role. But they've done a phenomenal job with they like to say, I think they've been around for almost as long as Google Workspace, to be honest with you. But and it's a small company, but we're agile, and they pretty much act like a startup every day, even though they're 10 years in. So they've done pretty well even before I got here. I'm hoping to help that, but they did just fine in the US before I got here, but we are global. So it's nice to be able to have resources that we can help. So if, we talk about support, we have people that can provide support in the time zone where the people live. We have the response from, the sales team and the accounts team in real time or in the time zone that people live, because we have people all over the world. So it works out very well that we're able, as a small company, to support everybody. And that support, in particular, the support team. A lot of times you send off that email to support and you get back that, thanks, someone will get back to you soon. It drives me crazy. We don't do that. The guys get back to you quickly, okay? And because the time zone shifts, it's kind of cool. I had this conversation with somebody early this morning. They're based here on the East Coast. They were worried about, well, your support team is based where? Are they going to be available when we need them? And we have them scattered, so they pretty much cover the full workday. But what's really cool is, if you put in if you put in an email before you leave at the end of the day, because we have people working in other parts of the world, when you come back the next morning, it's already solved and you have an
Mm.
email waiting for you saying, here's the solution. If you have a problem, let us know. If you want to jump on a call, they're happy to walk you through anything. Um, One of the cool things about the product too is, the price that we've listed on the site is comprehensive. So that's the product. It's the installation. It's the ongoing support. It's anything you need. There's no additional charges for anything. We'll give you a demo, or we'll work with you a couple times a year on specific problems if you have them. But it's a comprehensive solution, and that was a little bit different from the experience I had with some other software companies before joining GAT.
Well, I like what you said. Obviously, you've been around for 10 years, but you kind of operate as nimble as a startup, which personally for me, Scott, I've always liked working for startups because you can be agile and
Mhm.
iterate on your feet essentially versus corporate America. It's a long, prolonged process to get something solved. So I like that aspect that you guys have, man. Um,
Listen, that was pure hell for me. I worked in a public school,
yeah,
and
so you
we
get it.
we would talk about talking about something for a year and a half
And
before
nothing
anybody actually
solved.
proposed
Yeah.
an idea, right? So then it gets to the point where they're ready to actually, launch something, you go, guess what? That technology is outdated now. So now we have to start this whole It's always catch up.
Yeah.
That's a great thing about them. And it's cool for me because, I've never worked for a software company before, and I've been involved in, marketing. I've been involved now with the sales. I do some of the support stuff. I do some of the demos and people for various customers. And we also offer like weekly scheduled demo sessions that they're live, but they're scheduled so anybody can join in. You don't have to do two one-on-one. So for me, it's been great because I've been able to experience all these different things that I've never had. I mean, the podcast too, that's all
Yeah.
new venture for me. So it's great for me, but it's good as a company because everybody is really in tune with everything that's going on.
Good.
We get a lot of email, a lot, and that's because everybody is aware of everything that's taking place in the organization. And it also helps because if Scott's out today, somebody else can jump in. You're not waiting
Mhm.
until I come back 3 days from now because I forgot to put my out of office
Yeah.
message up there, which, by the way, bad segue, but I'll do it anyway. GAT can do that for you. So if your admin team realizes you have people that forgot to enable their out of office or forgot to forward emails to somebody else, you can do that with Flow and you can have that set up for
Nice.
somebody so that they're going to be out. Anyway, sorry, I couldn't
No,
resist that
I
one.
like the automation of that. Last couple questions here,
Sure.
Scott. 26 is around the corner, so I guess biggest things you guys are focused on for the new year. I mean, probably market awareness, number one, more eyes on the product always is probably a goal. Anything else that you're trying to solve for 26?
Yeah, well, it's not so much solve. I think what we're doing is we're improving the user experience. So we're happy to announce that some of our products have had a complete overhaul as terms of the UI for the customer. So it's really improved it. It's a much more efficient approach, and we really listened to the customers to find out which parts of the program they really like the most, which ones they didn't, how we can make them better. So we've done that right now for our Shield product, and the Shield is the one that does the data loss protection, and we can do the real-time monitoring and so forth. We've done that now for Flow, which is our workflow tool, and we're in the process as well for now going to the core product GAT, which is the big product, and it's the base product that everything's based on, and we're trying to give it that same look and feel across the board. But again, I know I'm preaching a bit here, but that's another thing about the company that I love. I've seen where a customer has come out and said, it would be great if GAT could do XYZ. And within a day, somebody in the engineering team went, that's a great idea, and we can do it easily. And it's pushed out. It's not, we do our releases twice a year. So, suck it up, Buttercup, wait for the release to come out. So they're very responsive to that, but also in terms of the product. I've been involved working very closely with the engineers. They've asked me for my input as a former customer and a former director of technology. What would I like to see? Trying to understand the mindset, and being an international company, there's some language issues too. Like there's some terminology that can be a little bit confusing depending upon whether you're in the education space or whether you're outside of it. And if you haven't worked in education, you might not understand what some of the terms are. So for example, administrator, that's a common term in technology and organizations and companies. But administrator inside a school has a very different meaning. A
Right.
school administrator is your principal or your
Yeah.
superintendent. So just trying to get the people who are actually writing the code to understand some of those differences has been really important. And the company's been very receptive to what I have to say, but also the customer. So moving forward, we're continuing to upgrade our products. We're upgrading the user interface. We're obviously looking to expand our base, but we're also going to be rolling out some new products. The Flow product that I talked about for onboarding and offboarding, we're working on a specific tool that's going to help the HR people take some of that burden off of the IT people and give them the control that they need so they can handle a lot of the onboarding features. And again, it's all going to be limited to certain aspects, of what they do. Or we're only going to give them rights to do the things that they need to do without taking the rights away from the IT team that they need to have for security and so forth. But we also have the Shield product, which we're using, and we have tools in the education space that are called, one is called Teacher Assist and one is called Taskmaster. We haven't talked much about the instruction, but we do have the two products that are focused on instruction. And with Teacher Assist, the teacher can actually see everything that's taking place in real time on the student's screen right in front of them. So they know everything they're doing. They can limit them from going to sites they shouldn't be going to. They can force them to go to a specific site. We can save them a ton of time because the URLs could be crazy to try to type out, spend half the time getting the kids to try to type it out. But you can also see what's going on and monitor it and make sure that everybody's on task, focused. Well, we're going to take some of that functionality and we might include that in for enterprise under a newer Shield program that will allow companies, if they choose to be able to monitor the activity of the work. I know, workers may not like that so much, but companies from an organizational structure, or even just trying to understand, again, I don't always want to take the negative look, but also the positive side of that. If seeing that information, seeing that data helps the company understand the way their employees work best or what works best for them, and they can change their operations to work best for the employee, then I think that's a win. So yeah, there's, an employee's being watched, Big Brother, all that. I get that, but it depends on what the goal is. If it's just to be a gatekeeper and to, slap wrists and say, bad you went off to Amazon when you were supposed to be doing whatever, I'm not about that. But if it helps the company understand exactly the way their employees are working and what works best for them so that they can restructure things and make everybody work more efficiently and be happier, then I think that's, a win-win for everybody.
No, it's a win-win when everything converts to revenue too. More revenue, the better, right? So why not have something like a tool like that in play? I don't say there's a bad thing at all. Obviously, you want your employees to be maximizing their paychecks and their pocketbooks, and if they're doing something that's not applicable to the business, then you shouldn't be doing that in the first place, right? So
Yeah, again, GAT's a very different place for me. The way they operate here is great. They very much make sure that you're having the life balance that you should have, the time away from the computer, the time on the computer, even though everything's monitored. But they make a really important point of saying that, you need to work around your life, not the other way around, not live your life around your work. Your life is what's important. Your work is what you have to do.
yeah,
And when when COVID hit and everybody was forced to work from home, that's when they had this realization at GAT, from what I understand, that what, the employees prefer to work from home. They don't want to have an office space. They don't need to. For the type of work we do, we
right.
interact through Google Meets. We have everything in Google. Everything is shared and so forth. We don't need to have office space. And they sort of did an analysis at the end of COVID, from what I understand, and they realized that, efficiency was great. Okay, everybody was meeting what they had to and more, and people's attitudes were
Yeah, happiness. Yeah,
happiness.
yeah.
Because they had this balance of life that they felt like they were doing their work and doing it properly, but they could still have a life that they wanted to. So, yeah, really strong belief system with the company is that work-life balance.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Last question here, Scott, and it's always a fun question to ask. I've had this question asked to CEOs, to sales reps, to operational leaders, to IT leaders, and it's just a 60-second hot seat question of why the
Uh-oh.
company, why the manufacturer. So, it's 60 seconds. You're pitching GAT Labs. What's the value prop? Why would I invest in GAT Labs? Let's hear it, man.
All right. Well, I think I've probably said everything already, but I'll try to encapsulate a little bit. So again, we complement that Google Workspace. We are able to give you that depth of information and that level of security and understanding that you probably are missing without having our tool. So we can help you to improve your operation, improve your security, improve the health and well-being of the people that are in your environment, and to do it in a cost-effective way. So we can take tasks that were requiring you to spend a ridiculous amount of time, and using a variety of tools, we can bring those all under one roof for you, and we can help you to be more efficient, more effective, and to do it in a cheaper manner.
All right, nothing but the truth, man. Mic drop. That's the name of the game. Scott, that's awesome. And really appreciate the time, my friend. I guess if more people want more information about GAT Labs, where's the best place to do that, as well as to connect with yourself?
Yeah, gatlabs.com for sure. And they can always email me directly. It's just scott@gatlabs.com. It's pretty simple, but everybody's very responsive. So if anybody has any questions, we have a very thorough website, goes through all the products. It distinguishes between what we offer for enterprise and government and nonprofits versus what we offer for education. But we're always happy to do demonstrations or to explain to people how we can help them meet their needs, and wish people reach out if they have a question.
Awesome, Scott. Well, I appreciate the time, my friend, and thanks for hanging out today on SVIP. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much. It's good talking with you.
Awesome. Guys and girls, that was Scott Fisher, the head of U.S. market development for GAT Labs. Go send him a connection request on LinkedIn. Go check out more information about GAT Labs online. We'll send a link in our post here at SVIP. And if you want more information about our podcast series, you can check us out on LinkedIn at SVIP, and make sure to listen to all of our episodes on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, Amazon. The list goes on. You guys stay safe out there. We'll catch you guys on the next one.